architecture that is needed to make this happen. So perhaps we get things started while we wait a bit. I wanted to just start here, and maybe I start with the both of you. Aliko, you're so far away. I don't know why, but luckily we have microphones. We've been speaking all morning and hearing from the presidents and the heads of state about some of the challenges that we've seen on the continent and the potential moving forward. What's been interesting is for the past 2 decades, if we take a look at AFC has been 20 years old. Past 2 decades, there's been more than $1 trillion, US dollars, committed to infrastructure investment on the continent. And yet we're seeing the vulnerabilities of Africa at this point. Of course, from your vantage point, as someone who has this refinery that is revolutionizing the way we talk about industrialization on the continent, where do you think the gaps still are right now?
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. I must thank AFC and the government of Kenya for arranging this conference, which is the Africa we build. I think, sorry, I have a bit of, I've lost my voice really, so, I hope you can hear me. So when you look at it today, we can do much, much bigger things, and I think it was President Ruto who said that maybe we should forgive past leaders. But right now we don't have any excuse, because we have, very big financial institutions. We have big entrepreneurs. What actually caused the delay before was that normally when you go to those financial institutions, the interest is not to develop Africa. The interest is to develop themselves. And, today we have big financial institutions that are at least they can listen to the big, entrepreneurs and see how do we develop and build our nation. We have made a lot of mistakes in the past where we've been relying on foreign investors. A foreign investor will not come without the leadership of domestic investor. So a domestic investor must take the risk and start developing your own continent, not for you to wait for foreign investors. Foreign investors will only come when things are looking rosy and good. So, as we speak today, also, when you listen to the speech of President Ruto, he actually summarizes almost everything that we are to discuss today. You have pension funds, 550 billion of pension funds in Africa, and you are funding something totally that is irrelevant. And most of our own people too, when they have money, they take the money abroad. So when they know that we have money, we have what it takes to develop our continent. Every day we are saying potential. Potential for what? The potentials are there, of course, but you have to harness the potentials. We've been having fuel queues in Nigeria for 52 years. Even when the refineries were sold, 3 out of 2. 3 out of 4 were sold to us in 2007. Later on, the same people who are benefiting $10 billion of corruption money went and instigated, and it was reversed a few months later, which we lost a lot of money because we paid banks, we paid advisors, we paid lawyers, we paid everybody, of which, AFC was part of. So today, as we speak, can we be where we want to be? The answer is yes. But we must build it ourselves as Africans, not by foreigners.
Thank you for that. And of course, we will welcome President Museveni and also President Ruto to the stage. We were just speaking about the gaps that still exist despite some of the investment that we've seen on the continent. I've been listening to both of you speak this morning, and it seems like there is more cohesion between both of your countries. I wonder if you speak to an investor and you talk about what the regional collaboration looks like now, what's different now than in the past, what would you say? President Museveni?
I think what is different is that the mistake makers have failed. So people have seen the mistakes. The mistakes have blossomed. They have seen. I think that's why people are beginning to see themselves different. You can see these are. I have been watching this for the last 65 years. I think Mr. Ruto maybe. Are you 65? 58, you can imagine. 50. So, these young people have come up and they have seen. It would have been better if because like some of the other people, like the Chinese, the people like Lee Kuan Yew, they saw it earlier. But Africa also had a lot of additional problems. Like, for instance, landlocked countries.
Right.
If you are landlocked, even if you see something, if the coastal countries don't see it properly, you can't move. So the mistakes are our biggest teachers. Because, and the crisis. The youth have no jobs. So I think people can now see, can listen more. Because there was a law. It was really ideological intoxication that if you, like for instance here in East Africa, how the East African community broke up in 1977 with Amin. People thought there was another way other than the East African community. But now later on they discovered that no, East African community is the only way, and that's how we came back.
President Ruto, have recent crises potentially accelerated some of this newfound collaboration between your countries?
Yes and no. I think the question you've asked is what is different now? And I think there is realization by all of us that the solution to the challenges and problems we have is not out there. It is right with us. If you listen from what Dangote has said, he has said investors from out there will not invest in our countries unless we take the lead ourselves. Why would somebody else take a risk? How is it their business to build our countries? It's none of their business, and I mean, rightfully so. First and foremost, we must realize that it is our responsibility. Others can only come to support us, but we must take the lead ourselves. And it doesn't start with entrepreneurs and industrialists like Aliko here. It starts with leaders like President Museveni and myself. Because a challenge that we have in our continent is a challenge of leadership. That's it. I mean, if the leaders are not willing to lead from the front, if the leaders are not willing to make the decisions, the policy choices that will take our country forward, because some of the policy choices are not necessarily popular. It isn't easy for it is not easy for President Museveni to say, if you are not making this choice, we are not going with you. You know, banning export of minerals is not an easy thing. Because there are people who make money out of selling raw materials. So you have to tell them, no, this is not the right thing to do. So some choices have to be made by leaders. So it starts with us as leaders, making the right choices. Not convenient choices, not necessarily popular choices, the right choices. That's number one. Number two, it is to stop what President Museveni was saying, petty jealousy, between us. I'll give you an example. President Museveni